Hey everybody, it's Lynn here from A Bit of Birdsong, and I have the most recent fun pack that was just listed earlier. I'm going to make a journal with my fun pack, and I wanted to go ahead and show you how I make one of the simplest journals to make. It's one of my favorite kinds. They turn out lovely when they're all full of things, and I went ahead and did some prep beforehand. I've already cut out a pocket. Let's flip it this way and show you the layers. So this is going to be my fabric cover on the front. The fabric just has the raw edges. Underneath, a lot of times I use muslin, but I don't think this is 100% cotton. I feel like this is a blend, but it's fine. It's just an off-white fabric and it has some staining on it. So that's going to go underneath that first piece of fabric. I cut a file folder down to exactly 5.5 by 8.5. Sometimes I make them a little bit larger, but once you put the fabric on the outside, it's going to increase the size a little bit anyway. And if your pages are 8.5 by 11, it's going to be a really good fit. So we've got the file folder ready to go, and then on the back, or excuse me, the inside, well, it's kind of the back of the file folder, but this is going to be on the inside. We have a layer of the off-white fabric again that's cut the same size as this one, and then a little bit smaller piece of fabric for the inside of the journal. What I like to do is really try to center these up, because you want this fabric, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you know me, you know that I don't go aim for perfection every time. I aim for what makes me happy, and I aim for quality. Quality can be messy. You know, I like for things to be sturdy. I like for things to hold up, but I don't aim for perfection every single time. Now let me look real quickly. So we have the fabric facing upright, and that's going to be the inside. So I'm going to lay this where it's folded that way. It can end up, the folder can end up sort of trying to arch either one way or the other, even if you lay it down this way. I don't worry too much about that either. So let's try to center this up and then put this piece of fabric right on top of the off-white fabric on the other side. And that looks pretty good. You can tell I ripped this one by hand. It's pulling a little bit. And then I think, how do I want this? Okay, I'm gonna put it this way and try to center that up pretty much over this off-white fabric on the outside. I'm doing it like this because most of this flower is showing over here. I did cut a piece of, where did it go? I did cut a piece of the quilted fabric that I may end up putting on the front and then putting yet another layer on top of that. I love all the layers. So let's get 4 paper clips and let's go ahead and put this all together so that it doesn't move around, because we've really tried to line these up so that the file folder is centered underneath everything. I don't know, yeah, it didn't go on the outside of that fabric underneath. So let's try again. And then let's do these 2 corners. And now we're going to take it to the sewing machine. And this is kind of a dim corner, so the light's probably not that great. I'm going to go around the edge with just a straight stitch, and I'm going to make it the stitch as long as it can be, which is 5 on my machine. And I'm going to start just in any corner. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to go around. Go ahead and pull that paper clip off. Sometimes you have to lift this foot up to keep the fabric from puckering. We're just going to go right around here. Now you may find that the piece on the inside is a little bit smaller, so that first stitch didn't catch it on the outer edge. It's going to catch it down at the bottom though. I pulled that second paper clip off. So you don't have to go all the way to the outer edge the first time. Like, I'm going far enough to grab the corners. It's got glue on my hands. But we're going to go around and around. So I'm not going to worry too much right now. And this is the outside, so you can also try to pay attention to not pulling it this way as you're sewing. This is the front, the outside of the journal. Now, I was just trying to make sure the fabric didn't pucker too much. So here's where we're going to start going all over the place, because I know it didn't grab that chicken fabric. It's a little bit shorter than the flowered fabric. I went down farther than I meant to on that, but for some reason it's hanging up at a certain point. And you can see this time I'm way out on the edge. To catch the very tips of these corners. Now I'm going to come up around the flower. And let's stop for a minute and make sure that we've caught the chicken fabric nicely. And a lot of times I'll come back just to this area on the front, right in the middle, and do a little back and forth. So that should be done. So what I did, and I not precious with this. I know that it's sort of a junky, raggedy, primitive look, and that is what I like. So this is the outside right now. We sewed just all over the place with a straight stitch, and I made the stitch as long as it would go, which on my machine, a Brother Runway, is 5. So that's the longest stitch that we can get. Sometimes I go through, like I'm doing now, and pull out some strings. If you wanted to, you could, like if something feels too sharp to you, you can round it a little bit. You can go through and fine tune. You can go back and add more stitches. You can use glue if there's an area that you want to lay flat. And you know what? Sometimes I go back just intentionally with the glue and say, okay, I'm going to put some in that corner. I'm going to put some, let me show you this. I'm going to put some in between these layers of the white or off-white to get that to lay flat together, and also to give it more body, because when a journal like this sits on the shelf, the fabric at the bottom can kind of roll up, and then you have the corner of the file folder showing in that corner. So the glue helps to add some structure, and you could round the corners on the file folder too, which is a great idea. I'm not worried about that too much. I think this is fine. Let me show you something. So here's an area where it didn't catch the chicken fabric all the way out to the edge. So I'm going to put a little bit of tacky glue under there. And that's one of the reasons I love tacky glue. There's a link to what I use in the video description, just if you're interested. It's the kind that stands up, so it's always ready to go. So then I take my journal, I kind of fold it that way to train it a little bit that this is the outside. Like I said, I did cut a piece that is going to go on the cover, but I'm going to visit my container of white and off-white fabrics to see if I have something pretty and lacy that might go under here and give it even more, more personality. And right away, I found this pretty piece of, it's a cotton scarf. I know some people don't want to cut these things up, but this one has holes in it, and it's just almost threadbare at this point. And you can see that I'm not fussing too much about this. I'm just trying to get a piece that's going to fit under here and show us part of the beautiful design of that fabric underneath. So I'm going to go, and you want to do all of this before you put your pocket in, because once you put the pocket in, it's going to be laying on the inside, and you would be sewing all over the top of your pocket, which you don't want to do. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this piece down first, and then I'm going to sew this on top of it. I won't go all over this. I just want to get those corners really nicely. And then you could switch to a zigzag stitch. You can use any stitch that you like. So that is how that looks right now. It's not completely even, it's fine, but we're gonna do a lot more layering. We have our upholstery trim. That is a lot of fun. I might put a piece of that on the front and on the back. I love this flower, so I don't necessarily want to cover that up. So maybe I will just put a piece here. I'm just trying to think, is there any other fabric here that we want to have on the front? This is pretty too. That would have been pretty to layer just a little bit of that under here as well, and have it sticking out as another layer between the white and this quilted piece. I ended up turning the fabric this way. This feels like little rays from the sun for some reason. So I really like that a lot. We were talking about putting the embellishment right on the front, which you could do. That could go on here. I'm not going to do that because I think I want something a little more sturdy than this. I would rather have this inside where it's protected, which is sort of what I was saying when I made this. They can go on the front of a journal. You just have to be aware if you're putting it in and out of a shelf or carrying it around a lot, these can get messed up. So let me make some, no, we're not going to worry about making something for the front right now, because I usually glue those down once I'm done. I'll make a pretty embellishment to go on the front. So anything else we put on the front, I think we're probably gonna either use tacky glue or hot glue. And that means we're probably ready to put this pocket in. And I'm feeling like this would be really pretty as well to put some sort of a lace trim or something. So I'm gonna visit my container of white and off-white fabric and trim. I grabbed a few little things to bring over, but right away I saw this little cotton piece, which fits perfectly, which I think that could be just the universe saying, yeah, that's what you should use. We could also add, we could just add little bits and pieces here and there to make it sort of a collage type thing. Even though this is pretty fancy, it could also be part of the wedding dress of whoever lives in the farmhouse. So I think we'll add that on here as well. So I'm only gonna take the pocket for right now. So here's our pocket with the trim sewn onto it. I'm gonna cut the strings. We're gonna end up with a lot of strings. And I do like some strings, but it can end up being too many especially if you're coming back and sewing, So here's the pocket. Did I really? No, that's good. So I'm gonna take this over to the machine, and I'm just gonna sew up and down. Like I'm gonna start at one side, probably this one, because of the way the machine is set up. I'll sew down this way and then turn it and sew down this way and then turn it again and come up this way and do a little back and forth stitch to make sure it doesn't unravel. Okay, I think it's turning out really cute so far. And I did just like I said. So the pocket is in place now, and we're gonna be putting our pages right in the center. We can continue to embellish and add trim. It's the folder, you can see, so the folder's gonna fold where it folds. I know that sounds crazy, but it's got that, it's very pre-folded, and you're not going to get that memory out of that paper. You can see where this front is overhanging just a little bit. That's why I try so hard to center it up when I very first make it, but that's not enough to mess it up. And it's not going to be that big of a deal once we start adding things. So don't worry too much. I went ahead and folded the pages that we have in the kit, and I added like the birds. I really wanted to see some of these birds, the whole information. So this is going to be right in the center of mine. So here is a strip of paper that I taped onto the edge to make this exactly 5.5 inches across. So it's a way that this page is the same size as the others, and I don't lose that information about the bird. So I'm going to put this in the center, and then we'll do a purple page, and then there's one with the dragonflies. And then how about this book page? Now this one is a little shorter, and I'm okay with that. I can come back later and add paper just like I did to that first one. Here is one of the purple pages where I decided to just go ahead and use Mod Podge to put one of the napkins down. So I love that. That's ready to go. And how about if we go to another bird page? I did the same with this one, adding the extra paper so that it's the same size as the other pages. And then let's do the grasshopper. No, I added a couple of just plain white or off-white pages. Let's do this off-white. Sometimes I like to break up the sheets that are printed with sheets that are not printed, just so, you know, it's not too monotonous. So let's put the grasshoppers. Maybe we'll put this one. Okay, let's put this, just this white page. It's got a lot of stains and distressing on it. And then what do I want right on the center? I kind of think this little page with the pigs is cute because we have the chickens there. But you know what? The roses are also really pretty. What would you do? Okay, I think the next thing I'm going to do is this page. So again, it's another purple page. I decoupaged the napkin on top, and then this very old page with the birds. I tried to fold mine and it cracked in half instantly. These are very, very old pages. If you can get a digital copy of yours, you'll be able to keep the image, you know, and reuse it. But I went ahead and Mod Podged that onto the page because there's not going to be any handling of that page without it cracking or breaking or tearing. Let's put that next, and then we will put the flowers, and then let's put the little piglets. You can see I'm not putting too many pages in here. We ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 folded pages. And by the time we add flip outs and pockets and do art on the pages, it's going to be really full. And this will end up being really pretty on a shelf. So that's all the pages we're going to put in. Oh my gosh, and look, I'm so happy. There's our awl. I'm going to go ahead and get out a large needle. And I'm going to take out some of this hemp cord and pick out a color that I like. I think this white or pink, but I think the pink is going to be what I want to go with. Kind of a rosy pink. I usually go about 1, 2, 3, about 3 lengths. So we have our piece of hemp cord, and sometimes I use this beeswax. I have a couple of these. They sold these at Joann's, so a lot of time you can get them in Sewing Notions. And we've got our pages lined up the way we want them. We've got them right in the center of the book, and they're all facing the right way. It's good to check that. I've put mine together before and played around and then didn't realize I had flipped one, put everything in, and I had a page upside down, which was not, it didn't make me happy. So, you know, you can put this wherever you want to. You can put it close to the bottom, which gives your journal more stability at the bottom when it sits on a shelf. You may not have as much curling up of the fabric that way. I normally center mine a little bit, but I think maybe for this one, I am going to come down a little lower with that. And let's put a hole right in the center. Oh, my awl is back. I love you so much. I love this awl. So we're gonna push this right through. And I'm coming in from the outside because I want the strings on the outside. I go in the center first, and then I go down to the bottom. You can go like halfway between these two, or a little bit lower, or just wherever you feel like it's gonna look the best. And let's bring this one through. And then I'm gonna flip this around a little bit. Now I'm gonna push this back through here. I'm gonna make sure that I'm not pulling through or cutting through or splitting through that thread there with the needle. Try to go right beside your thread, and see that still moves freely, so that's going to be good. Pull that through. And I can tell that I have too much thread on the inside. So let's check that's nice and snug, and it is. So we're going to flip it this way and put this last hole in at the top. I don't want to punch through the little face of the Phoebe bird there. I think I'm going to go right up above it. And then pull this out here. So our 3-hole pamphlet stitch is done. And now you can adjust the threads to make them even, which is why you don't want to split your thread when you push your needle through. If you're using a smaller needle, that's a lot easier to do, and you don't want to do that if you can help it. So here are the strings. Going to look inside here and make sure this is nice and snug and we don't have any loose threads anywhere. And now we're going to tie this. I tie one knot, or tie one time, and then put a little dot of tacky glue, and then we're going to tie it again and make sure that's snug. And I think these cords are even enough. They're a little bit off, but I'm okay with that. I think having one a little bit longer than the other looks pretty as well, the way everything hangs. So at this point, if you wanted to, you could go through and start cutting threads. I can tell that this is going to end up really curled up over here, and I don't necessarily want it too curled up. I like the ragged edge, so I'm going to go through and put a little bit of tacky glue under here. I sound like a representative for tacky glue, and I promise I'm not. I mean, I'm an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on my link and buy things from there, I do get a little bit of a commission, and it doesn't cost you anymore. It's just me advertising for a product, even though I'm not sponsored or anything. So now let's look at, let me lay this down like this, and let's look at our little pouch of beads that we have. And somewhere I've got my key. There's that. So, get my wax out. And let's split these beads up. Let's put, this cord is pretty thick, so sometimes it won't work on the beads. They have to have a hole big enough that this will go through, because they all, there we go. These glass beads made me think about all the times when I was digging in the yard in my old garden that I would dig up things. The house was about 100 years old, so it wasn't unusual to dig up something, whether it was a piece of glass or an old bottle cap or a spring from a mattress, or, you know, just something like that. One time I dug up the prettiest little ceramic puppy. I think it's inside the house in a shadow box. So it must have been someone's little toy or collectible. Okay, I'm back, and this journal is sort of finished. It's finished as far as I'm concerned, but there is room for whoever buys it to continue to work in it, or just put it up and look at it. I think it turned out really pretty, and I love this. I love the story behind this journal. I love old photographs, and I don't use as many of the pictures of men as I do ladies. And I think I'm just like that sometimes. I'm drawn more to the really fancy Victorian looking, the dresses and the jewelry and everything. But this man he just looks so dapper. He's got his little, it looks like cuffs at the bottom of his pants. I can't tell if it's a little wrinkle, but his socks, his shoes, everything looks so neat. He's got his tie and his hat, and he's got his hand behind his ear there. Here are the glass beads that I was putting on when we left off. There's one of the old keys, the blue button, and then I added another button, and we have an old piece of hardware here, and then we have the bottle cap that's totally flattened out. I put a butterfly on the front and a pretty piece of, sort of a lacy piece of fabric underneath his photograph, and all of this is glued onto the front. I ended up only using a tiny bit of trim, thinking that this could have been a sample that maybe he used to make something or do something in the house. So when we open it up, here's the tag for the journal, and this book is called Man of the House. So he inherited the family house and he lives there. Here's an old recipe page that was in the pack. Potato candy, that's what mine had on it. It sounds so interesting. It's actually got a potato, 2 packages of confectioner's sugar. It's got vanilla extract and a whole jar of peanut butter. I wonder if it's good. I'm tempted to try it. Anyway, here is a beach picture with a little boy out front here. A lot of male energy in this one. There is a picture in the front of 2 ladies, and we're going to say maybe this is his aunt and his sister. So I did do some distressing and some stamping. Part of the fabric I had pulled out, I made a little pocket here, and there's a piece of handmade paper. He could be testing out paper that he's using to make egg cartons or something, because he does have a farm that is part of the house. There's the old page with the bird on it. And then we pull this out, and there is an old photograph of a cat and a dog. I love these so much. Jason and I looked at this and we thought, oh, how sad. I mean, obviously these animals are long gone, but they were loved. Somebody sat them up side by side, and it looks like it's on a porch in front of the doors, and they sat there and got their picture taken. And this, I distressed that purple and then went over it with a white paint to make it look sort of whitewashed, like people did around old houses, fences and stuff. And this page has just been sprayed with the mica stain, and honestly, it makes me feel like a project in a garage, like maybe an engine or something getting painted. Another distressed page, a little piece of black and white fabric that I had. It had a tire swing in part of it, so that is there. And then I did more distressing. Now this does have some coffee in it. You can kind of smell it. I used to not like that smell, but for some reason it doesn't bother me anymore. I don't know if it has just grown on me over time, or if my senses changed. I don't know what it is. And then I love this old picture. Here are the 2 fellows together. So, maybe he was having some sort of a get together or something. So that old photograph is in the journal. And I cut out the little, the drawer liner that had the lavender on it. I cut out little bits of that with the scissors that have the sort of like the zigzag edge to make it look like a little postage stamp shape. And then here's the other side of the bird page. That's where we decoupaged that. And then I went through and cut ads out of very old magazines, like late 1800s, and glued those in. And there's the book page. And then here is that tiny little pocket where we turned up the book page. It was so small. I went ahead and took some scrapbook paper that looks like toile, the old fabric. I guess it's French, but I don't know. I think it's French. And then another little picture of a little boy out playing. It says 4 years old. It actually says, it looks like it says Jimmy Holiday on the back. And I've tried to research. I try to research and get pictures back to the family. I have a whole stack of pictures right now that I have connected to somebody online, and it starts with one person and goes straight up somebody's family tree, an entire branch. So I've reached out to the person. I would want the pictures. If it were my family, I would want the pictures. So I am hoping that she will respond to me. She has a very fleshed out family tree with a lot of entries. So I think if she sees my message, she'll be interested. But I bought the pictures to use and to sell, but if I always try first to connect them to family members who might want them. And this set of pictures was actually quite remarkable. I'm going to put a little picture in here of all these photographs because so many of these were marked with first and last name. And when I found this family tree online, I found the central person with an obituary that was confirming to a lot of what was in this entire package together. And if you have a public tree on Ancestry, if it's public, people can go there and they can search for people in your tree. So I was able to look at this tree that's public of this person I've contacted and find this lady who was central to this group of pictures I found. And all of these names on the backs of these pictures just work their way right up through her family tree, which I think is incredible. I feel very blessed to have been the one to buy these photographs because I'm going to get them to her if I can. Anyway, I digress. So there are more ads here. We've got the hammer here, polishing cream, look, fiber soles, just really utilitarian things. And here's the center of the book with the Phoebe there. And so I'm sending this word out into the universe, this name. I have a very special, it's personal, connected to this name. So if you're inclined to send up a prayer, to send good energy, to think positive thoughts for healing and redemption regarding this name. But I'm sending this out into the universe. This name keeps coming to me, and it's interesting because it is connected to something very personal. So more ads. We've got stockings and the insects, and then here's another little pocket. Let's see, what might I have to go in there? Oh, I found just the thing. Here is sort of a faded photograph of a man who is fishing. So he's standing beside a pond, and I'm sure this farmhouse had a pond, right? More socks here, and then here's another tiny little pocket. And there's the little sample upholstery card where someone was having something done. More old ads. And then in here, we have just a whole page of boots. So you could continue to add to this. You could write quotations. And there's the little slide, the frame. I took the transparency part out and put the playing card that had the duck, that's there. So I think this turned out really fun. It's got some old photographs in it. And this tag in the front is held on with kind of a unique little pin. I'm not sure if that's a Tim Holtz. I kind of feel like it is. And in very tiny writing stamped on there, it says stuff, which I think is very fun. So this one is currently in the Ko-fi shop. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back really soon, and bye for now.